You think you're chasing purpose, but you're just feeding your ego. You dress it in goals, in discipline, in self-worth. But underneath, it's still all about you. How you look, how you're seen, how much power you can hold without looking desperate. The ego is a master of disguise. It lets you believe you're spiritual when you're just self-centered with better language. It lets you call yourself focused when you're just afraid to lose control. And worst of all, it convinces you that you're free while you still live as its servant. Jesus didn't say, empower yourself. He said, deny yourself. Not punish yourself. Deny. Refuse to serve the part of you that always wants to be right, respected, noticed. That voice that says, I need more, I deserve better, I should be above this. That voice isn't you. It's the parasite within you that thrives on applause and dies in silence. And that's why Jesus always called people into the shadows, into the desert, into obscurity. Because that's where the ego starves, and that's where the real you is born. The ego never wants truth. It wants validation. It doesn't care if you're whole, it only cares if you're seen. And in a world where image is currency, your ego will always be rich and your soul will stay starving. You build platforms, not altars. You seek influence, not intimacy. You want likes more than light, and so you keep serving the god of attention, hoping one day it'll feel like enough. But it won't. Because the ego was never meant to be fulfilled, only crucified. To follow Jesus is to walk away from your favorite mirror, to stop curating your identity like a brand, to stop using virtue as a costume. The cross is not a symbol of self-expression, it's a grave, and every day you're called to carry it, not decorate it. If your version of faith always leads to praise, comfort, and applause, you're not following Jesus. You're following your ego, and you've just baptized it in spiritual language so no one, including you, can tell the difference. The most dangerous lies are the ones that sound like growth. I'm doing this for my future. I'm building a legacy. I'm becoming the best version of me. But underneath those sentences is often a whisper. So I don't feel small. So I don't feel invisible. So they finally notice me. That's ego, dressed in ambition. And Jesus knew the trap. That's why he said, lose your life. Not improve it. Not perfect it. Lose it. Because the self you're trying to build is the same one that's holding you hostage. The ego doesn't die in front of an audience, it dies in secret. When no one is clapping, when no one notices, when you choose the quiet yes instead of the loud defense, when you forgive and say nothing, when you walk away from recognition because truth is more important than attention, that's real power. But it feels like death, because it is. The death of who you thought you had to be in order to matter. The death of performance. And the beginning of peace. You keep asking why you're anxious, why you're tired, why you're empty. But you never stop to ask who you're serving. Because if you're constantly trying to prove, impress, outperform, you're not tired because of the world. You're tired because your ego is a tyrant. It never rests. It never thanks you. It only demands more attention, more control, more illusion. And the more you feed it, the hungrier it gets, until you're left with success on the outside and silence on the inside. Jesus never promised you popularity. He promised you a cross, not as punishment, but as a way out. Because your ego doesn't want you to heal. It wants you to perform healing. It doesn't want peace. It wants the illusion of control. It doesn't want transformation. It wants applause for pretending to be transformed. And the cross ruins all of that. The cross exposes the show. It burns the mask. It leaves nothing but you, bare, bruised, and finally, free. Ego thrives on comparison. It doesn't need to be good. It just needs to be better than someone else. And that's why you keep looking sideways, judging, envying, competing. Not because you care about truth, but because you need to feel superior to survive. That's not confidence. That's addiction to being seen as enough. And the tragedy is, While you're busy proving your worth, you're walking further from the one who already gave it to you freely. Jesus didn't say, improve your reputation. He said, follow me. And that path often leads through rejection, loss, even invisibility. Not because he wants to hurt you, but because he wants to kill the part of you that still needs the crowd's applause to feel alive. He wants to strip you down to nothing so he can give you something real. Not a platform, not a persona, a soul, a name that isn't for sale, a life that doesn't need performance to be sacred. There is no peace where the ego rules, only pressure. Constant choking pressure to be more, prove more, achieve more. You're not resting, you're calculating. You're not growing, you're performing. And no matter how spiritual your language sounds, if the engine is ego, the destination is burnout. Jesus didn't call you to impress, he called you to die. To let go of the exhausting need to be seen, to be admired, to be somebody. You already are. But the ego can't accept that, because it only feels alive when it's chasing something. The self you defend so fiercely is the one Jesus came to destroy. Not because he hates you, but because he knows that version of you is killing you. The version that can't let go, that needs to be right, that must win, that resents being unseen, that seeks attention disguised as impact. That version isn't you, it's a shell, a shield, a lie, and the sooner you bury it, the sooner your soul can finally breathe. You call it confidence, but it's fear in disguise. Fear of being ordinary, fear of being overlooked, fear of being nothing without your image, and so you build, sharpen, protect, but all you're doing is polishing a cage. Jesus didn't come to upgrade your ego, he came to crucify it. Because as long as you need to be seen as powerful, you'll never be free. And as long as you chase status, you'll keep missing the sacred simplicity of the life you were actually made for. Your ego will sacrifice your peace just to protect its pride. It will destroy your friendships to win an argument. It will burn bridges just to stand alone and be right. It doesn't care about truth. It only cares about dominance. That's why Jesus calls you not just to resist evil, but to resist yourself, to turn the other cheek, to go the extra mile, to lose the argument. Not because you're weak, but because you're finally strong enough to stop serving your false self. You think the fight is between you and the world, but the real war is within, between who you are and who your ego wants you to be. The ego wants applause, your soul wants peace. The ego wants control, your soul wants surrender. One leads to burnout, bitterness, performance. The other leads to rest. But you have to choose, and the choice won't feel comfortable, because killing your ego will feel like killing yourself, until you realize it was never really you. The cross isn't heavy because of pain. It's heavy because of pride. It's the weight of laying down the need to win, to dominate, to defend. Jesus carried it not to impress the world, but to defeat what the world worships: ego, power, appearance. And he invites you to carry it too. Not as punishment, but as freedom. Because the longer you protect your image, the longer you stay a slave to it. And what you refuse to crucify will end up crucifying you. Your ego tells you to chase greatness. Jesus tells you to become nothing. Not because you have no value, but because only when you empty yourself can you be filled with what actually matters. You've been taught to climb. He invites you to descend, to take the lowest seat, to wash feet, to serve without spotlight. That's not weakness. It's rebellion against everything this world rewards. The greatest power isn't in rising above others. It's in lowering yourself when you don't have to. You want peace? Lay down your image. You want rest? Stop managing your reputation. You want to follow Jesus? Then stop worshiping the mirror. Because the truth is, you can't serve two masters. And as long as your ego is on the throne, Jesus will only be a logo you wear, not a life you live. The kingdom isn't built by impressive people. It's built by broken ones, by those willing to be invisible if it means becoming real. Those who'd rather lose attention than lose their soul. You can spend your whole life building a name and still end up unknown to heaven, because God doesn't reward image, he rewards surrender. The loudest person in the room may be the most insecure. The one with the spotlight might be the furthest from light. Ego fools everyone, except the one who sees in secret. And the question isn't what they think of you. It's what you've done when no one was watching. That's where the real you lives. And that's where Jesus is waiting. The ego dies slowly. It screams. It resists. It fights for control. But it must die. Because your soul can't breathe in its shadow. It's better to lose now than to carry pride into eternity. Jesus said, "What good is it to gain the world and lose your soul?" That wasn't a metaphor. That was a warning. Every time you feed your ego, you trade your soul for scraps. And one day, when the applause fades and the image cracks, you'll realize you were building your identity on smoke. You weren't made to impress. You were made to impact. But impact doesn't come from being seen. It comes from being surrendered. And surrender means giving up the version of you that looks good, sounds good, performs well, but isn't real. Jesus didn't say, "Be impressive." He said, "Be faithful." And faithfulness often looks like silence, obscurity, even loss. But what the world forgets, heaven records. And what your ego hates, your spirit desperately needs. Your ego will convince you to delay your death. Spiritual death, ego death, death to self. But the longer you wait, the more your soul suffocates. Don't wait until you've lost everything to let go of the image that's killing you. Don't wait until no one's watching to finally be honest. The cross is not a symbol for decoration. It's a path for transformation. It's where your ego goes to die, and your real self begins to breathe. You won't find life by climbing higher. You'll find it by laying yourself down. The world tells you to build yourself. Jesus tells you to lose yourself. The world says, protect your name. He says, take up your cross. One promises applause, the other promises truth. And you can't have both. You must choose, comfort or calling, spotlight or surrender, ego or eternity. One leads to temporary power and permanent emptiness. The other leads to death, and then finally, life. Lay it down. The image, the performance, the hunger to be seen. Lay it all down. Jesus didn't die so you could become more of yourself. He died so you could become who you were always meant to be. And that person isn't built by pride, but born through surrender. The ego says, climb higher. Jesus says, follow me. You choose.